Hi, welcome today. My name is Shyanne Beatty. I'm with the Alaska Native Heritage Center, and I am really excited to be able to introduce you to my guests today. Welcome to Brad Miekkejohn from the Conservation Fund out in the wild. Thank you also to Curtis McQueen here today. Hi, Curtis. And thank you to the Native Village of Eklutna President, Aaron Leggett, for joining us today. Happy Earth Day, everyone.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth
Which
Day.
Earth Day is every day, honestly. But today is a really special day for me to have this conversation with you. I really wanted to start with you, Brad. Recently, we had put up a film called Return to Us, Restoring Alaska's Eklutna River. And we just wanted to tell everybody kind of how this journey began. And I know that, Brad, you kind of had started that. You had watched actually a movie from Patagonia called Damnation, and then kind of got things going through looking at what was happening here in Alaska. Can you tell me how this journey started?
Yeah, it probably goes back even a little further for me, Shyanne. My grandmother was quite a spitfire. She was one of the women who chained themselves to the White House gates and won women the right to vote. So she was sort of the main inspiration in my life. One of her mantras was, leave the place better than you found it. And she did that in her way. And I've tried to do that in my way. And after seeing the film that you mentioned, Damnation, I cast around. I was so inspired by that movie. I thought, well, I know there's a dam around here for me to take out. And I'd heard about the Eklutna River Dam for a long time, and the film inspired me to go take a closer look. And the more I thought about that dam and the movie, the more certain I was that we could do it. And one of the things that had come out of the movie was how long it takes to take these dams down. And I was inspired to find a different way of doing business. A lot of these dam projects take decades, and I didn't feel like I had decades to do this project. I wanted to make it happen much sooner than that. And so as we talked it up, everyone seemed to think it was a good idea and get inspired by it, and kind of built the critical mass of enthusiasm and financial support and people who could do the work. And the project just took off from there. It was like lighting a match under some very dry tinder. From there, it just sort of blew up, and it moved quickly beyond my idea to a collective idea that the community of the Native Village of Eklutna had been talking about this for a long time. They'd known about this dam, but they couldn't seem to get people to really pick up on the idea. But once the match was struck and the tinder was going, it just took off like wildfire.
Thank you. I know, Curtis, that there was a large movement between Native Village of Eklutna. At the time, you were actually working at Eklutna Inc. Can you kind of tell me how this transitioned from talking about it to action?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I think it's good to hear how it started with Brad. As CEO, over the first couple of years, I got to know the tribe very well. And it was important as a corporation that we engage with the other side of ourselves, which was the tribal side. I actually always introduced myself as a tribal shareholder rather than a shareholder tribal. There'd be no ANHC without the tribes. And so I thought it was very important. And as I got to work with the tribe, and we were starting to explore a gravel removal operation in an area that had for 40 years had everybody else take gravel from the area on tribal land, but never really engaged with the tribe. The tribe hadn't quite been organized in the early days. And so it started out as a commercial project. And as we were looking at that, I got to know Mark Lamoureux. And Mark Lamoureux was key for me, because when Mark started to educate me on the impact on the river that was not too far from our project, and that there were still salmon running it, but nothing like the elders would describe, I actually got and talked to a few elders. We've lost a couple since then. There's a couple, Lois Munson is one, Alberta Steffen is another. As shareholders, I got to visit with them at annual meetings, but I got to ask them about the river. And I got introduced to Brad. And one of the things we were doing at first was we were looking at the impact of the lower river and what it would take by maybe digging some pools and some ponds and dropping some trees and creating shadowing and trying to fix the lower part of the river, which had been destroyed by the highway, the Glen Highway coming in, and by the railroad bridge. And I'm not saying they did it on purpose. That was just transportation logistics at the time. Well, then Brad introduced me to the subject that there was a dam further up in the lower river, and that ultimately that was a more important project. And as I got to read the 1991 agreement and started to learn that the utilities were not so warm in letting water down the watershed from Eklutna Lake, but they could point to an old abandoned dam at the lower part that made it almost immaterial. There was no reason for them to let a bunch of water out of the lake because there was a lower dam. And Brad and us started to talk, and he brought resources together. We brought resources together, and we had built some good political relationships with the railroad, with the Department of Transportation, with the Army Corps. And so as a project person, those relationships with all those different government agencies are critical. And I think to point out when Brad said we lit a match and it took off, I do got to give a lot of credit to the great staff at all these other agencies who believed in this project. And they came together, and we got an Army Corps permit in, I've never seen a permit come together that quick. Even the Corps, who had spent about $1 million studying the lower river at one point with the tribe, recognized that this was a critical thing. And so really it was a relationship driven. It was and is a great story other than to the utilities. And we had such a wave of support, both political, local, the support of the Conservation Fund, the support of the tribe and the corporation, that no one could really find a reason to stop the project. It did make the utilities nervous that we would then expedite, or in our world, not expedite. 1991 agreement spelled out some terms, but we were going to take the excuse of the lower dam as an obstacle away from the conversation. And that's exactly what we did.
Thank you, Curtis. And President of Near Village Eklutna, Aaron, what really did this mean, would you say, to the Dena'ina Athabascan people to have this dam removed from the Eklutna River?
Well, I think it was really important. I mean, growing up in Anchorage and being connected to the native village of Eklutna, I saw the impact that the river had, and I heard from elders about what the river used to be like. And when I became involved with the tribe back in 2007, there was this hope that we could someday take down the dam. We had spent, over a decade cleaning up the lower river, removing old junk cars and debris and refrigerators and all sorts of things. I'd been involved with the Army Corps talking about rerouting the lower river, but the dam itself always kind of stood there. And so when this momentum came, it was really important, I think, to be able to kind of seize on this opportunity. I think it was also an opportunity about increasing recognition of who the Dena'ina are and the importance of the village. And so, we kind of leveraged, like Curtis said, a lot of political pressures and goodwill to help facilitate this and realize that this was the right thing to do. I think also the message, as we've watched over the last couple of decades, Upper Cook Inlet, salmon runs start to dwindle, and the idea of being able to put online another salmon producing stream in Upper Cook Inlet is something that is not controversial. So anyways, that's what we did. So thank you.
Shyanne, if I might, as we were gearing up to do the dam removal, we were looking at the ways that the dam might be taken down and who might be qualified to do that. And in hindsight, the single most important decision we made was to work with the Native Village and the Eklutna Native Corporation to take the dam down. We were looking at working with one of the big construction firms to do the job. We'd gotten quotes from them, and Curtis was very diplomatic and kind of whispering in my ear and planting the seed that Eklutna had the capacity to take the dam down. And as soon as that light went on, I could see clearly it was the right idea to have Eklutna doing this work to take the dam down on the river that bears their name, that supports the village. And so that really was such a great idea. It came from Curtis, and I'm glad I was awake enough to take advantage of it. The other thing I'd like to say is, Alaska has done a lot of things right by salmon. We still have abundant salmon. And part of that is because we haven't built dams on rivers that bear salmon. Dams have been salmon killers all over the world. And I saw this as sort of an example that we could make about why not to build dams, what to do when we did build a dam by mistake, and how to fix the problem. So that was a big impetus for me, is to show that there was a better way to treat salmon.
Thank you so much, Brad. I know that part of this also, I mean, it was abandoned for 89 years, and that's a long time. And that basically it took this long for this dam to be removed, but also there's also next steps to really make this an important thing within the Alaska Native community, but also nationally kind of. And that is also the endorsement of the Alaska Federation of Natives Convention. Curtis, can you talk a little bit about that resolution, how that, why that's important?
Thank you. That was critical. We were going through some meetings last summer, some initial meetings with the utilities, which is ongoing. And after one of those meetings, I sat there and I started thinking about all the consultants and all the resources and all the money and all the staffing that the utilities were putting on this project. Yes, for the right reason, because it was going to take a lot of people to get there. But I started to think that voice from the professional utility community might tell a story about the impact of what will happen to the utilities. And my concern was it was time for us to talk about the impact that's already happened to the Native community of Eklutna, but to celebrate the largest village in Anchorage. And who's the largest village in Anchorage? It's Anchorage. Who hosts AFN most of the time? We do. And as Aaron knows, under his leadership, and when I was at EI, when AFN opens up, they open up the remarks with the Native village going up and doing a traditional welcoming, as we as the corporation would stand on stage. And I thought, well, wait a minute, if we've done that at the beginning of AFN, why don't we get AFN to understand the immenseness of this project and how important it would be to have their support? And I thought a resolution would be the way to do that. And I immediately got a hold of Aaron and I believe Richard Farber, and Aaron was all over it. And we thought, well, let's go to Siri, because they're one of our representatives at AFN. And Aaron picked up the phone and he called Sophie Minnick, and Sophie Minnick got behind it right away. And I don't know if it was Aaron's idea and mine, or Sophie volunteered. I think it was a little bit of all, but we saw Greg Razzo as a great writer of the draft resolution on our behalf. He was a great parliamentarian for a long time at AFN. He got behind it right away, and within a month we were drafting language, which then got introduced on the floor virtually, of course, because of COVID, but it got introduced and it passed unanimously at AFN in November. It then needed to go and get ratified by the AFN board, which then happened on December 8th. And then we took a little bit of time to think about capturing that story in a press release. And he never gives himself enough credit, but one of the best writers I know and one of the best editors I know is Brad Miekkejohn. And so we took our resolution, which was, love and pain and wordy, and he cut right to the quick, and he really made it say what it needed to say. And sure enough, the board, the AFN board passed it in December. So that was important. I want to make one other comment related to that, which goes back to building momentum. And that is that the tribe and the corporation had supported utilities and still do. We're using electricity right now. We helped the utilities when they wanted to extend power lines over Eklutna lands in the past. We helped them when they wanted to build a new $120 million plus power plant right across from the village. The village and the corporation supported that. There's a brand new gas-fired power plant there. We supported them when they needed to anchor some power lines into the Knik Knob to pull it across the hay flats to connect to Palmer. We supported that. So the Eklutna people have an incredible track record of supporting industry and using electricity. It's now our turn for industry to support this project. And fortunately, we have some champions like Don Young. Don Young was one of the key architects in 1991 that introduced the legislation that converted federal ownership of Snettisham in Juneau to AL&P, the Corbis family. And here in South Central, it took the federal ownership of the current hydro project, and the three utilities at the time formed what's called the Eklutna Purchasers, which was MEA, MLNP, and Chugach. MLNP had the largest stake and led the process. And most people now know there's been a merger that has been completed. So now Chugach is leading the process with MEA behind it. But our trick is going to be to make them buy in to being partners with us after all the years of us being partners with them, and start releasing water down that watershed.
Thank you, Curtis. Aaron, do you have anything else that you would like to say a little bit more about this relationship and what kind of to do next here in this moment?
I think Curtis pretty well covered it. I think it's just continuing to be putting respectful pressure onto them to do the right thing and to see the benefits that are beyond just a couple cents a kilowatt hour. That this really has a benefit for our entire community, not just its members. That having a healthy river really is a benefit, and so we'll continue down that road. And hopefully, we know that the river is never going to be what it was before 1929, but we would like to see a river where a percentage of the water is restored to it, and that hopefully salmon passage can go all the way, ideally up to the lake.
I think one of the things that's been so exciting, enthralling, engaging about this project is putting Humpty Dumpty back up on the wall, putting them back together, fixing something. I think we're at a point where we know we broke a lot of things, and restoration is happening all over the country, all over the world, as we kind of fix some of our messes. And this is a mess that was necessary for the early growth of Anchorage. It was this dam that we took out provided an important power supply at a time when Anchorage was growing. It served its needs. It had impacts to the Eklutna, Dena'ina, to the salmon. But we're making up for that. We're repairing that damage, and we're learning from it. And that's, I think that hands-on nature of this project has been what's drawn folks to it. And the rest of the vision is kind of getting all the way done, of having a living river back again. And we don't know what that's going to look like. We have a long way to go. It was one of the impediments in taking the dam down. In the first place, people said, well, why would you take this lower dam down when you don't have a reliable water supply for the fish? And my attitude was one step at a time. You do the thing that's in front of you and you move on to the next thing. And we're still carrying the momentum. We still have a lot of support across various public and political sectors, and we're going to get there. And the vision that I have is a river full of fish for the Eklutna people and for all of us. I think that's going to be a huge asset to our collective communities.
You know, I know that we're going to have Eric Booton from Trout Unlimited join us here in a moment. And I know that there's other people that really supported this. Do you want to kind of talk about some of your other partners that really had support in this movement?
I think, and Brad might correct me, I think in the movie, there might be a list of supporters. Certainly the Rasmussen Foundation and the Rasmussen family, not just the foundation, themselves. Ed Rasmussen came down and walked down the stairs to that site and got behind it. And that meant a lot to us. But there was multiple donations from multiple organizations, but still at the end of the day, the biggest lift was Brad and his team, and actually the incredible team of the Conservation Fund on the East Coast. The executive director, that may not be his right title, has come to the site. It is something they're very proud of. And the collective support. Brad pulled together in an organic moment, a bucket brigade. The movie shows that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I was dealing with a minor surgery and I couldn't go, but I got to see how many people with different hats showed up just at that. And I think with COVID kind of slowing down, I think we do that again this year, Brad, as a bucket brigade. And I also know that the powwow, which has really gained a lot of attention over the years, that every 2 years the tribe would host, and of course with COVID, but they always look for a theme. And I'm making a friendly suggestion, Mr. Chair, Aaron, that maybe the theme of the next powwow should be about the river and the river restoration, because we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I see Eric just joined, but I want to make a additional comment to Curtis's remarks. We had a long list of supporters. Certainly the Rasmussen Foundation's most prominent among that list. Many, many others. If you watch the movie, there's something like 20 different funders. Particularly gratifying to me, in addition to all that support, is the heartfelt thanks that I received from the Eklutna people. And that's not something that you get much in life. That level of gratitude was so meaningful to me throughout this project. And I'm just, we don't have enough gratitude in the world. So thank you for thanking me.
Well, I'll add to that. In the boardroom, we surprised Brad with a gift, and that gift came from the village of Eklutna and one of the artists who is known, one of the family members who makes the caches, what you would store away food in the winter. And the military has put a cache to celebrate Eklutna on J-Bear, but a very beautiful cache was given on behalf of the Eklutna people to Brad. And he started to choke up. We all started to choke up. So we had to end it pretty darn quick.
That's great that, there's all this gratitude, because that was a big undertaking. I mean, you raised a lot of money to really help not only just the native village of Eklutna, but really the community in the state of Alaska, and ultimately to bring back the fish. And I'm going to say hello to Eric Booton and welcome him to our conversation right now from Trout Unlimited. Thank you for joining us, Eric.
Hi, hello. Thank you very much for the invite.
Well, we talked a lot about kind of how everything had progressed from the very beginning conversations to finally the point of where the dam is being removed, and really bringing the water back down into the Eklutna River so the salmon return. And I know that we want to really find out here on Earth Day, there's people watching from everywhere. What can we actually do? What are our next steps? How can we support this?
Yeah, well, it sounds like you've covered a lot so far, which is great. I'm thrilled that you all are sharing this story, and what a fitting story to share on Earth Day. This is certainly an effort worth celebrating. And as was mentioned, my name's Eric Booton. I'm the Eklutna project manager for Trout Unlimited Alaska. We're honored to work closely with the native village of Eklutna, the Conservation Fund, and the Alaska Center to help share the story of the Eklutna River, to help gather support for returning water and salmon to this river. And I think we just heard a lot, it sounds like, about the removal of the lower Eklutna Dam. And that was one of the initial blows that occurred to the Eklutna River. So that blocked the migration of salmon both to their spawning grounds and out to the ocean, where they could become adults and continue their cycle of life. And that dam being abandoned, blocking fish passage for nearly a century, did a number on the river itself. And having that dam removed was a victory in and of itself and deserves immense round of applause. And the fact that that dam was removed really removed a excuse and what would have been a block in helping return this river to its natural state. So having the dam removed, that opened up 8 additional miles of habitat for the fish to use. Trouble is, there's no water being let out of the upper Eklutna Dam so that the fish can actually utilize that fish habitat. Fortunately, we are in the process now where the utility companies, which they're legally required to do, the utility companies that own and operate the Eklutna hydropower project, they are in the process where they have to evaluate the impact that that project has had to the fish and the wildlife. And over the course of the coming years, we'll be doing the scientific studies to determine what those actions are that need to be taken in order to make up for the project's impact of fish and wildlife. So first off, we had the dam that blocked all of the upstream access for the salmon. That has been removed. And fortunately, we have the opportunity now to help return water to the river. And so right now, I mean, you all may have touched on some of what we have seen elsewhere in the lower 48 when it comes to taking down dams and giving salmon a fighting chance. But what we've seen is that once we give salmon the opportunity to reestablish themselves in the river, they do a really good job of making that happen. And already in the Eklutna River, we've seen juvenile fish make it further upstream than they have before. We've seen adult coho make it further upstream than they have before. So the fish are there and they're really eager to get back into this habitat. And at this point, the story of the Eklutna River is still being written. And each and every one of us, whether we know it or not, can be an author in that story. So the biggest thing that everyone listening to this can do right now is you can pledge your support for the restoration of the Eklutna River. And the easiest way to do that is to go to the Eklutna River Restoration Coalition website, eklutnariver.org. And once you take that pledge of support, we will share your support with the decision makers, the people who will be making decisions as to what will be done to help bring fish back to this river. So that's the utility owners and their boards, that's the Anchorage Assembly, as well as the governor's office. From there, we'll also let you know additional actions you can take and any exciting events or updates that we have during this process. Additionally, another step that you can do is you can go above and beyond and directly contact the boards of these utility companies, as well as the Anchorage Assembly, to make them know that you support the restoration of the Eklutna River, that you do want to see water flowing back down the river so that fish can utilize that habitat. And if you're curious in that, feel free to reach out. There is an email option on the website where you can contact us, and we're happy to help give you some more information. And lastly, one of the things that we've witnessed so far is, while so many people have had the opportunity to hear what has happened to the Eklutna River and what's possible in returning water and fish to the river, there's still a lot of people out there that haven't heard the story yet. So one thing you can do is you can help share the story. Knowledge is power, and we want people to hear about the opportunity at hand here. So one of the best things you can do, I'm sure you all just talked about the film, feel free to share that film with your friends and family. And we also have that film available on the website, eklutnariver.org.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's just a quick overview. If there's any questions that you might have, let me know. I'm happy to dive deeper. But again, this is a thrilling opportunity very happy y'all are sharing this on Earth Day, and really hope that everyone will join in and support.
Absolutely. I just want to thank each one of you. Thank you, Brad, so much for joining us in your natural element, as you should, from the Conservation Fund. It was a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you, Curtis McQueen, for joining me. And thank you, President of Native Village Eklutna, Aaron Leggett, as well as Eric. And as Eric had said, remember, you can go to eklutnariver.org and find out really more about what to do next. And if you really want to get involved, you can also go to the eklutnariver.org, getting involved, and it will talk about signing the pledge. So support the native village of Eklutna and bring back the water to the Eklutna River and bring back the salmon. Thank you very much. And as Aaron would say, Chinan Guninu, thank you came here today in Dena'ina.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good job.